You want to do the marks?
Sure.
Ready?
Ready.
Okay. 1, 2, 3, mark. 1, 2, 3, mark. 1, 2, 3, mark. All right. So I'll do the first part.
Testing. 1, 2. Testing.
Okay. Also, we're gonna have to do. You're gonna have to do 2 of the second parts with episode 34, 35, and 36, just in case we have 3 out of this.
No problem.
All right. So we'll just do them all in one shot.
Sounds good.
All right. I'm marking. Here we go.
All right.
Good day, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Hazmat Guys. I'm Bobby Salveson, so let's get into it.
Welcome back, everybody. We're on episode 34, and we are the premier podcast dealing with hazardous materials response for the first responder. We're going to hopefully give you the knowledge and the insight to do our job safely and effectively. I'm Michael Monaco, and as always, I'm glad to be here with my co-host, Bob Salverson. What's up, Bob?
Oh, nothing. Let's see. First, if you haven't stepped up to buy your swag, your Hazmat Guys T-shirt or a mug, which seems to be very popular. Those mugs.
The mugs. I'm shocked at how quickly the mugs are going.
They're very popular.
Yeah.
They're from what I understand, they're very good mugs. I like mine. They keep the hot water hot for a long time.
Yes. So not only are you getting a quality mug, but you get to impress everybody because they will know that you are a listener of the show.
Yes.
They will either be impressed or make fun of you a lot.
But it's a way for you to donate and help out the show and help us continue this endeavor on. So if you do that, great. If you don't want a mug or a shirt, but you still want to support the show, you can go to the right side of the hazmatguys.com website, and there's a PayPal button, and you can just maybe buy us a beer or a coffee or something.
Right. And if you're listening to this and you really love the show, why don't you go ahead and throw in a review? You can do the review on either iTunes, Google, Stitcher. Where else can they throw a review in?
That's
Our
it.
website?
Yeah, no, that's it.
That's it. There's no other places.
No other place. You can actually now we're doing this all periodically on Google Hangouts live on air. So actually we are recording this in addition to the podcast that you listen to in the future. We're doing this live. And when we do this live, it is unedited. So all the mistakes and the cursing that I cut out and everything is live and in full color. If you would like to watch or at least be notified of these things, if you go to Google, I think it's Google Plus, and then you kind of like just follow us. It's the hazmatguys@gmail.com. If you just go there, and I think what it'll do is if I post a show is coming up, you could say, yeah, I'm interested, and it'll notify you. You say no, and it will not notify you. I think it's still a new technology for at least me, and we're just kind of playing around with this now. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's so far so good.
Also, this week, very exciting, we'll be in Baltimore, Maryland, at the International Association of Fire Chiefs Hazmat Consortium. We'll be presenting our own individual classes. Mike's doing something on oxidizers, and I am doing one on utilizing digital media, which is kind of like a new method to reach your members and train them and can keep them trained for basically like evergreen kind of content. It's pretty cool stuff.
Yes. So since the fire department is always about 3 generations behind, Bob will be going through Windows 95, and we'll be talking about that kind of technology.
Yeah.
No, it's amazing how out of date the fire department is when it comes to technology and reaching out and doing things. Our own department only put in internet access into the firehouse, a year ago? So it's it can be a challenge. So Bob's got a really good presentation. If you get the chance to be down in Baltimore, I definitely would recommend sticking around until Saturday for it. It's well worth it.
Yeah. And what else?
Well, we got the roundtable. We have completely changed the format of the roundtable.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've got new players. We've got a new way of doing it. So if you're into the round table or you haven't gone into the round table yet, I highly recommend it. It's a really interesting way to get different perspectives for all the different things that are going on throughout the country.
Right.
It's a good
Uh,
time.
and this is breaking news. I hope I'm the first one to be bringing this out, but they just, yeah, I need that little ticker tape sound. Um, they just discovered and officially put on the periodic table 4 new elements. And I don't know if you know about this, but I guess with the doctrine of science, when you discover a new element, they name it basically on the scientist and where they were or their country of origin. And this is a real story. Element 113, which is nihonium or NH. Nihon is the word from, I guess, in Japanese, that means Japan, and it means the land of the rising sun. So that is brand new. There's also 115 is Moscovium, where the discoverers reside in Moscow. There's, and for United States, is Tennessine, which is TN from Tennessee, and Oganson, after Russian physicist Yuri Oganson. They're basically, brand new, hot off the presses, man-made. I don't know much more than that. I don't think they really documented very much.
No, I think they only are around for a few picoseconds and
Yeah,
then
it's
they disappear. So
short-lived.
short-lived.
So let's get right into the meat of the substance. We are doing whatever it takes to finish up a weapons of mass destruction series. I guess it would be a series.
It's definitely going to be a series.
And what we try to do here is, because when you talk about weapons of mass destruction, you inevitably intertwine it with terrorism. And me and Mike really tried to keep terrorism outside, but there are some there's some similar. Well, I guess you have to mention one in order to effectively understand both.
It's true. You can't. They're so intertwined because the only difference between a terrorism attack and a mass casualty incident that's a hazmat is really just the intent,
Right.
right? You can have the same outcome, same chemicals, same release, but one is intended and the other is not, and one is considered a terrorist event and the other is just an accident.
All right. So one of the first things that we need to do as responders is recognize that the event isn't an accidental or isn't intentional. And these events, luckily, are rather rare. So only way for us to be prepared for dealing with them is by brute force learning and having a basic knowledge of the signs and symptoms, mainly physical signs and symptoms, like what you're going to see on people. So maybe even knowing where to go for the material to reference and find out more about this stuff. You just don't have to much more than any crap. We just don't have much to say that anyone that's not written right. Hold on a second. We just don't have much to say that. Okay. And we just don't have that much information about it because anybody that's really being involved in this is not really available, you know? You know,
Well, yeah.
so they may
uh,
experience in handling this substance, but very few people on the planet have working knowledge that would help us. So, I mean, like, who do you reach out to?
well, for the show, we reached out to people in the DoD, the Department of Defense, Homeland Security, a couple of resources out in the university and college setting, and to nobody's surprise, they all declined coming on the show. Yeah,
Oh,
a few people. Yeah, I called a few times. A few people threatened, uh,
to wipe us off the planet, kind of thing.
yeah, they weren't happy, and it's good. So we're gonna give you what we can give you. Take it for what it's worth. Luckily, none of us have really ever been in a terrorism hazmat situation that you would think of the sarin attack in a subway, all those things that we trained for. Nobody's really been involved with it, so we're all just kind of going to do our best to do what we can with what we got when we have it.
All right, hold up. Where in here do you want to put those scenarios? Do you want to do this whole outline and then I just drop those scenarios in there somewhere, or do you want to kind of just flow into them and out of them?
We could just kind of flow into them and out of it. If you feel like something is going to be in a good spot, throw it in.
Okay.
Like what? All right, we just did that. Well, what would you do? We got you get a call for, people down in the subway, or you know, uh, something along those lines.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to go back into let's define terrorism.
Okay.
All right. So let's define terrorism, Mike. Let's start there.
Well, there are a ton of different definitions out there. Pretty much every government agency that has any jurisdiction over anything is going to have their own sort of ballpark of what terrorism is. And the reason they do that is because they want to be able to prosecute under their jurisdiction and be very, very flexible. The broadest one is from the FBI. And they basically say an act of terrorism is defined as it is an act of terrorism that is directed by countries or groups outside the country. Uh, it's very, very broad.
Right, and that's in the United States. Obviously, that's FBI. So they're dealing with the United States. But even if you're not from the United States, it's probably very close to that. Wherever country you're from, it's going to be very close to that whole.
Yeah, for the most part, we generally think of it as anything that is bad that somebody is doing to cause an effect.
Mhm.
To persuade people, to put fear in people, any kind of bad thing like that. But it's we're kind of going down a rabbit hole. So
Yeah.
what do you want to do?
Like I said before, I mean, terrorism is an entire subject unto itself, and we're going to try to keep out of it.
Yeah, even so, this is going to be a substantial series, and we're going to have a pretty broad overview of the topic. So we're going to hit the idea of terrorism, but it's not something we're going to focus on. This isn't a Fox News alert type series.
Well, another thing is, and we got to keep this in mind, is depending on your locale, where you live, WMD incidents may be mitigated by the fire department, or maybe even the police department, or maybe they're handed over to the police department. You got to kind of know the playbook in order to truly operate one of these scenes.
Right. So, as a first responder, part of your job is knowing the limitations of what your local jurisdiction allows you to do. For example, me and Bob, we don't have the ability to go in and test white powders. Everybody else in the country, the hazmat companies are the ones they go in. They're doing the first responder stuff, and they're testing their white powders and they're running them through the paces. We're not allowed to even come close to touching the white powder. The
Right.
PD wants it. So that's something we know that our jurisdiction, and we just play nicely.
Right. And one of the big things is going to be doing some scene size up. And we need to think about a bunch of things for us to properly be able to respond to a WMD incident. So we're going to go through like a few of them, because even though they may be simple and basic, and we probably know this stuff from just generally being in the fire department or police department, or whatever, it bears repeating in this type of scenario. So let's just start at the beginning.
Right. Well, what happens? We have an incident, something happens, and everybody becomes alert to that. Like 9/11 happened. And in New York City, everybody became very alert to the idea that there was going to be another terrorist attack. So we had all these things in the back of our mind. And now we don't even think about it anymore. We used to have a sign in our rig that said secondary devices. Like, it was this big sign. When we switched rig, eventually the whole concept kind of faded. We are waking up this morning and there was some kind of an attack down in Orlando, Florida. So that location was an LGBT bar. So now everybody for a little while is going to start to think, when they're responding to LGBT places, that this could be the scene of another terrorist attack. So occupation and location is kind of one of those things that we should always be ready to let the hair stand up on the back of our heads when we hear. And generally, we want things that are symbolic or historical targets, things that have some kind of significance. One of them, public buildings, being a huge target.
Yeah, and even controversial businesses such as that bar, or maybe an abortion clinic, or the fur stores. The fur is on your back, the blood is on your hands.
Right.
It was good times.
Throwing blood. The good old days.
Ah, good times.
Don't you think that's a little like, if they're throwing blood, didn't they kill something to get the. I don't
It
know.
was red paint. It was, come on.
Was it red paint? I always use blood.
Yeah, that's why they threw it. Well, whatever.
And then things that are really going to kind of mess up the world. So if I could screw with a lot of people at once, I'm going to go for infrastructure, power stations, transportation hubs, things that, I could have a little thing and it's going to affect a lot of people.
Right. Or even a type of incident, something like an active shooter, like we were just talking about, or even like, like schools. I just found out about this, but my local schools have cameras in them because they're always afraid of the active shooters that are coming into these things. And my local police department, they're, I'm going to give them relatively large. I'm not going to say they're huge, but they now have the ability to integrate and view all of the cameras in all the schools in my district. So now if there is an active shooter, they can watch from headquarters what's going on and document immediately and then set up their strategy and tactics based upon that information. Something like a Be Nice, which we're going to get into what that is. Be Nice is the mnemonic. Is that the right word? Mnemonic?
I think it's a mnemonic or
right?
an acronym.
Oh, that's better. Acronym. I like that
An
more.
but an acronym is an actual word. No, a mnemonic would be like when you say like I don't know, ballet's niece in Cyprus events. Like, isn't that a mnemonic?
That's much easier to remember than Be Nice. That's good. Or how about an MCI? They can be designed to overwhelm the system or just to test the capabilities of your system.
Right. What is huge in a lot of these events, if it's going to be terrorism related, is the timing of the event. So you get something like, say, a holiday or a historical event,
Or a
nine or what?
Or birthday.
Or a birthday, like my birthday.
Well,
My
not your like
no,
Hitler's birthday or something like that.
well, Hitler gets all the good stuff, man. Yeah, but you got Hitler's birthday. 9/11 was the Davis Peace Accords. You got all sorts of stuff happening at all different dates, and people like to explode things and do things on significant events.
Right.
And then you have cultural events. So for us, something like the Super Bowl, where you get a lot of people are watching, and it helps to add that sort of fear into people's mentality where we're going to do something, and it's going to be where you are having fun and when you least expect it.
Right. And again, continuing down, and this is kind of just wrapping up that whole scene size up for how hazmat possible WMD terrorism is, are we going into a place that has like unexplained sicknesses, illnesses, deaths? Are you walking up to a mall and you see 30 or 40 people down?
Right. Or odors and tastes. You're walking around somewhere and you kind of get this weird odor, and it's the piece of the puzzle.
Right. Or even vapor clouds, mists, something like that, like a fog that is not easily explained.
A fire with unusual behavior. It's kind of acting weird. It's got a weird color. It's got weird, patterns or smoke.
Right. Or even anything, and this is just the catch-all, but anything that makes your spidey you. All right, let's do that again. Or even anything that makes your spidey senses tingle.
Ooh, that's a tough one for your tongue.
Yeah.
Spidey senses. Blah, blah, blah. So, luckily, in this, we're going to be covering quite a bit of competencies for this. Pretty much everybody that's in the system needs to be aware of this. So, you have awareness operations technician, the specialist, the incident commander, and the officers.
Right. And even competencies for the technicians with specialties. And there's, as far as I can find, there was only 4 specialties. I thought there was a lot more. There's tank car, rail, intermodal, and marine tank vessels. I thought there was one for radiation and incendiary. I thought basically all these Be Nices were a specialty into itself. I'm kind of surprised.
I would imagine they kind of would be. Does it really specify in the standard that there are only 4?
Yeah, that's all I found in NFPA, but
Wow.
could be wrong.
I am surprised at that. So, in order to keep this at a 5th grade level, we're going to promise to hold on. That in order to keep this at the 5th grade level, where we promise we will try to stay, we're going to try to stay. Oh, okay. All right.
You can say it however you want.
Yeah. There was a lot of I got mixed in my head. All right. So, in order to keep, let me mark that. All right. In order to keep this at a fifth grade level, which is where we promised we were going to try to keep everything, we're going to stay at around the operations level. So we're going to touch a little on technicians, just kind of, hey, technicians can do this and this, but really we want this to be focused on the operations guy.
Okay, and this is where that weird term comes about when we start talking about WMDs, and that's the mnemonic "Be nice."
Is that a rapper?
Negative K.
No.
No, that's funny actually.
That would be a great rapper.
Oh, be nice. He's like,
Oh,
he brings it down.
we once had this guy in my firehouse. They ended up getting a hold of a tape that he had made, and he was trying to rap, and he was not the smartest guy in the world. And at the time, 50 cents was really big, so they started calling him 2 cents.
I like that.
Yeah.
All right, so this "Be nice" is the way we remember all of our hazards for WMDs, and the first one is going to be biological.
Right. So something like bacteria would fall into this category. A lot of single-celled living organisms. A lot of times they don't require a host. They can just kind of be on a surface, or they can be released. Something like anthrax that produces spores. The spores can live a long, long time in the right conditions that would normally kill bacteria. Spores can survive with no issues.
And some examples of this would be like anthrax, like brucellosis, cholera, plague, tularemia, those kind of things.
Right. And then my personal favorite are viruses. Honestly, I think viruses are one of the coolest things out there, but they require a host to live in. So unlike bacteria that you can just kind of pick up from touching something, viruses really need to be transmitted from a living host to a living host. So something like the Ebola, the viral hemorrhagic fever that's been going on the past couple of years, or this new thing from South America. What is it called? Zika?
Yeah, Zika.
Yeah, the Zika. So those are all considered viruses.
Or even rickus. God, that I'm looking at it, I'm saying it to myself, ricketsetta, but it's not. Rickettsia.
Rickettsiya.
Rickettsia. Rickettsia. I'm going to say rickettsia. Let's see if they can say anything about that.
Rickettsiya.
Okay.
It's like a cough drop. Isn't there a cough drop like that?
We should say that. All right, I'm marking it. Here we go. All right. In rickettsia, I like the way that sounds.
That's a cool word.
These have the traits of bacteria, but like viruses, they need a host.
And then we got stuff that comes from biological things, and there would be a lot like toxins. They're non-living chemical compounds. They're generally produced by like bacteria, plants, or animals, and they're very complex molecules that have similar effects to chemical agents.
And examples of these might be botulism, ricin, or saxitoxin. These toxins are not contagious. You just don't, I mean, you can be contaminated, but they're not contagious in the typical sense that we say that biologicals are transmitted by me sneezing or blood or whatever. They can be, you can transfer it, right?
Right. Right, but you can't. If it's on my hands, I touch you, I could transfer that. But if you have botulism toxin, you're not going to sneeze and affect me.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying there.
Right. So then we jump into the whole kind of nuclear radiation thing. These types of incidents, they're really not common. They are much, especially in the terrorism world that we were talking about before, these are much more like industrial type accidents because these materials are really difficult, one, to get, and two, nowadays, they're really difficult to sneak around with. The largest seizure of fusible material in 1995 of weapons grade uranium, okay, was about 2.7 kilograms, weighing roughly around 6 pounds.
Yeah, fissile materials weigh a lot more than you think. Uranium, for example, weighs 18.7 times more than water. So just put that in perspective. A gallon jug of it would weigh about 156 pounds or 71 kilograms.
So 6 pounds literally probably was a couple of drops in a pipette.
Yeah, it was nothing.
Nothing. Absolutely nothing, or at least that size.
Yeah.
When we start talking about nuclear materials, especially as first responders, trying to break it down to the very, very basics, we want to look at ionizing type of radiation. This is the stuff like the alpha, the beta, the gamma, and the neutron. This is what we're mostly concerned about.
Right. Non-ionizing, the stuff that It doesn't completely remove an electron from the atom. It only excites it to the next energy. So what we're really, listen, if you want more on this, we really went down to the bones on this in episode 7, which you could probably find, well, you definitely could find at the hazmatguys.com/THMG 007. So that's how you
Right.
can find any one of the episodes.
One of our original episodes.
Yeah.
So it's probably not that good. But I recommend listening to it anyway.
Yeah, it's good.
It is good. It is good. From there, we go on to incendiary devices. An incendiary device is, it's kind of like an explosion, but not really an explosion. Incendiary devices are usually flammable, and you ignite it, you burn it. When it hits something, it causes the target to go on fire, almost like what?
Like a Molotov cocktail.
Molotov cocktail would be a perfect example of an incendiary device. All right, it's burning. You throw it, it shatters, and whoosh, it lights something up. Whereas an explosive device is usually a substance that is designed by function to explode. So a chemical reaction within itself, it literally the inside, the chemicals react, and it causes this massive release of energy.
Right. I love definitions that have the word that you're trying to define in the definition.
Isn't that insane?
Sweet.
Like, hey, what is an explosion? Well, an explosion is a substance that's designed to function as an explosion. You're like,
oh, that's much better.
Oh, it makes sense now. In the terrorism sense, oddly enough, statistically, they happen more often in the summer months or on Mondays.
Why would you know that?
Because that's what the outline says.
Oh, all right, well. Then that's good then. What percentage of explosives, Michael, are in use are in the ammonium nitrate basis?
Oh, so you're saying of all the explosives that are out there, how many percentages are ammonium nitrate based? I would say around 50%.
Higher.
75%.
98% of the explosives in use today in the United States are ammonium nitrate based. That's a very high number.
That is a very, very high number. I would have expected that to be a lot lower. All the different types of explosives that are out there, 98%.
Right. So we should really be focusing our training, our attention on these, considering that 98 out of 100 times you're going to be getting. That means only 2% of the time you're not getting these things when you talk about explosives.
Right. So what do we have? The underwear bomber and the shoe bomber make up the 2%?
Right. So underwears is the 1% and the shoes are the other. Clothing.
All right. Quick question for you off the air. The dinging that's coming through, is that coming through the computer?
Yeah, somebody's texting me and I cannot stop it from doing it. Hold on. It's on. It's somebody texted me because they're picking something up from my house. It's on there.
That mug ever make it back to you?
From Delaney?
Yeah.
No, he said that it's still coming to him. He just called up again.
It's like lost in the ether.
That's what I said to him. He said he's going to see us, and I said, I'll give you a free fucking mug. All right. I'm back and ready.
Guess who's back?
All right. So I'm marking this. We're going back to the main reason explosives are so dangerous, right?
Yes.
Okay.
All right. The main reason that explosives are so dangerous is the combination of oxidizers and fuels.
All right. So, for example, let's look at TNT, right? Trinitrate toluene. The toluene has a few hydrogen on it, and these are bumped off, and nitro groups are slapped on, and bingo, you got a fuel and a strong oxidizer, and all you need is a good smack on the ass to get the reaction to go.
Ooh, so TNT is like my wife.
I've seen you getting changed in the locker room. I'm going to say it's a little bit more of than a smack on the ass to get that going.
Oh, that hurts.
It hurts so good. So, you know what? Let's pause right here because I want to ask, let's say we do have one of these ammonium nitrate based operations coming up and we go, based upon information that's coming in on the ride over, what are we thinking about? Mike, you're in the hot seat. What are we going to do?
Okay.
Walk me through it. We get on the rig. We're on our rig. We're riding into it. We have, let's say, 5 minutes to get there. What's your moves?
Okay. What information do I have so far?
we're going to give it to you that you have a report of an unexploded device that
Okay.
in a school. I'll throw it as a school. Evacuations are complete and in progress and almost complete, and are expected to be done before you get there. It's a sunny June day, and all resources are en route.
Hmm. Well, so I have a device in a school. The school is already being evacuated, so I really have no fear of life. Is not too much of an issue.
Right. And let me throw this in there because this could have a huge impact in how we work with this. Is that it was found in the hallway, not in the lab.
Okay.
There was no phone call about a threat.
Hmm.
So it could be just like one of those suspicious packages. We don't really know.
Well, I can't say we're probably going to be doing a whole lot on scene because I have a feeling that this would be transferred over to the PD.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing, based upon that, we got the school. We're going to secure the area, especially as operations level. They're going to secure the area. They're going to maintain the safe distance, and they're going to be ready in case this device does go off. What is going to happen? So especially like on a command level, if this device goes off, do I have utilities nearby? Is gas lines going to be disturbed? Is power going to be disturbed? Am I at a safe distance and out of view of the explosion? So yeah, it's in a hallway, all right. But am I standing in front of the door that's in front of that hallway, or is everybody cleared out?
Right.
Those are kind of the things that are going to really be running through my head. I would probably have myself or the resource guy or the resource guy, whatever you call him, the science guy, is going to look up to see what the standoff distances are, so we make sure that we're well out of range. And maybe this would be a time to employ a robot if you have one, kind of go up. And if I'm going to send a robot, I guess one of the first things I would do is go and have radiological source detection. I want to make sure this isn't going to be a dirty bomb.
Right. Long distance stuff, not like Ludlums and stuff like that, where it's you got to get kind of close to it. I'm talking something like a pack eye, where we can pick up a minute gamma or neutron source from like across a football field. And
Right.
you may or may not have the capability to do this stuff, but all these things are huge gamma scintillators in a backpack.
Yeah, tremendous. And they pick up the smallest amount of stuff from hundreds of feet away. We've been out on boats doing the harbor stuff, and a boat will go by with the source in it, and the backpack goes crazy. So very sensitive.
All right, that was we're gonna try to throw these into these little scenarios and just see where they go.
Right. What would you do? Along the same lines?
Pretty much, I would probably just I would look for collapse zones. As far as building, if walls are displaced and possibly can go over, I want to be on a corner of the building and 1.5 times away, of the height of the building away from the building. That's kind of a small thing. I'd want to be protecting or shielding us from the glass that possibly can go. With water, I want a couple of hose lines stretched and the building kind of surrounded with water appliances, either remote or manned, but those kind of things.
All right. How about sending out a team to be searching around for a secondary device?
That gets tricky too, because if you send out and you do find, whether you find it before it goes off or you find it after it goes off. So it's a damned if you do, damned if you don't kind of a thing. But I think it's a necessary evil. So
Yeah, I would agree.
you have to do something.
I would agree. So we start talking about explosives, and we'll hear sometimes high explosive, low order explosive. Can you shed some light on what the differences between those would be?
Yes, the low explosives or low order explosives are known to deflagrate or blow up at a speed that's slower than the sound of speed of sound, which is 1,142 feet per second.
So because of this, they have more of a shattering. I'm sorry. Because of this, they have more of a propelling effect than a shattering effect.
Right. And
Right?
need much to get them going. Mostly just like a flame or an acid flame reaction will set these wheels in motion.
Right. So something like black powder, smokeless powder, or rocket fuel.
Right.
All things that will. Oh, it's almost like a really fast burn, right?
Right. It gives a lot of push by pressurizing the air. Okay. Now, high explosives, these little buggers know to detonate. And then this means they go boom with speeds greater than the speed of sound. I'm having a lot of trouble with that one today. I don't know. My tongue's not working.
The S's. You're having a hard time with the S's.
All S's. This is pretty much an instantaneous combustion. It is flash.
What's really kind of cool about high explosives is that even though they are extremely powerful, they're extremely difficult to set off. Right? You usually need something to get these things going, like a blasting cop or a low order explosive to initiate it.
And then the term high explosive thing can be further broken down into primaries and secondaries and tertiaries explosives based on how much energy they need to go boom.
So in this whole discussion between deflagration and detonation and high explosive and low explosive, do I really care?
No, no, just know that running or in sheltering in place or maybe just sheltering somewhere will be involved in some way, shape, or form. I'm not going up to measure these things to say, well, this is a secondary. I really
right. Because it's going to kill me, whether it deflagrates, detonates, high explosive, low explosive, it's still going to send things through my body.
Right.
Right. All right. So let's take a look now at the chemical part of the Be Nice, which would be the C. All right. Many chemicals out there can be weaponized and can be harmful. A lot of stuff that we use on a day-to-day basis can act as nerve agents. They can act as all the different types of warfare agents that are out there. The real difference between like a chemical nerve agent, like a military nerve agent, and something you would buy at Home Depot is the strength. A lot of the warfare agents are about 50 to 100 times more powerful.
Right. And these are designed in small quantities, can disable you or kill you. And well, this whole topic right here, this chemical part of the Be Nice is a rather large one because, and when me and Mike were making this whole thing, we were talking about this, and it's very hard to repackage all the information that's out there. And again, without new information and trying to change it up a little bit, that's why we're going to try to throw some scenarios at you of how we'd handle these things. But one of them is going to be a nerve. And we heard, and this is from the wives' tales, is, oh, watch out for the nerve gas. There is no such thing as a nerve gas. It's a wives' tale.
Right.
You know, these
it's
are
a liquid.
Yeah, they're liquids. And what we do is we aerosolize, not we, but somebody is going to aerosolize them, and then they're going to be absorbed by the multiple routes of exposure, be it, inhalation, absorption, transdermally, whatever, injection, however you get it inside you. But that's how you're going to get it in there. It's by taking these droplets and suspending them. That's why Japan, not a lot of people were killed in, what was that, 95, Mike? 96?
Yeah, in the sarin attack, I think 95.
Yeah. Not a lot of people were killed because literally the guy just dropped it on the floor and people splashed through it. That's how they got killed.
Yeah, and I know we mentioned this when we talked about the wives' tales, but if you look at pictures of that attack, there are people with no PPE standing in front of that puddle, and they are perfectly fine. Perfectly fine. So most of them are colorless. They generally have absolutely no color to them whatsoever. They do have various types of odors. Some fruity, some sulfury, some smell like roses, some smell like geranium. I don't know why they give us these. All right. I really don't. I don't know what geraniums smell like. I don't have a freaking clue. And then there's letters associated with all these. So the lettering designation for the chemical is typically marked somewhere from like a G, or what is mustard? H. All right. So the G was all the stuff that was created in Germany. V would be some kind of abbreviation for like venom.
Right. And, another term we got to define is persistence. And this is something you're going to hear an awful lot. And this is a loose word for how much it wants to come out and come and get you, or actually more to hang around. It's a term of the volatility, but it's all right. So the volatility is how much it wants to get out of liquid and into the air. and then the persistence is how much it's going to be affected by, like, let's say, wind currents. Does that make sense?
Yes.
I was having a hard time finding the actual definition in the hazmat sense of persistence, and in my mind, that's what it comes down to, is that how much is it going to want to hang out with you?
Well, I think it's a little crazy because we use this is where things kind of get crisscrossed. We use military terms because a lot of these definitions come from the military. So they'll say it's persistent, all right, but then we know from the hazmat point of view that or non-persistent, like they'll say something is like G agent, right? Is non-persistent. So it doesn't stick around a while. They say it's volatile. But in reality, it only has a vapor pressure of like 2.
Right.
They say it's volatile because they're comparing it to other chemical warfare agents. So like sarin has a vapor pressure of like 0.02. So nerve agent G, some G agents are going to be 10, 100 times more volatile than sarin, but that from our point of view, that doesn't mean that they're going to be any more volatile.
Right.
So it's kind of this weird, we're using terms that don't necessarily line up, and we have to kind of put everything into perspective.
Okay. Yeah. We can even add something like a thickener to a G agent to make it less volatile and more persistent. So we can engineer these things. I don't know why we would. Maybe people in the military, I guess, would, but they can change these things and make them more or less volatile, more or less persistent by just changing them in some way.
So lessening the volatility and makes it more of a weapon.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah, and that kind of makes sense if you think about it. We're not looking to aerosolize this. We're looking to go from person to person.
Right.
It's a person to person contact. We want this stuff to stick around so that it's on me and it touches you and it touches the doctor at the hospital and the nurse at the hospital, and then the nurse touches somebody and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
All right. V agents, on the other hand, are known to be persistent. Now, this is where we start to talk about that comparison. G agents are like 2 on the vapor pressure, and V agents are like 0.0002. So
Yeah.
you're talking thousands of times difference, but they're still, for our purposes, they're really, really low.
Right.
All right. That's like freaking corn oil.
Right. It's like nothing.
Yeah, it's like nothing. Like I can't remember the last time I spilt olive oil and it was gone when I went to go clean it up.
Well, either way, all 4 of the nerve agents are heavier than air. They're going to go down.
Right. Now, let's take a G agent like Taubin or Tobin, or how do you pronounce it?
Tabin.
Tabin, Tubin. This is considered a GA agent. All right, that's its abbreviation. It's clear, colorless, and absolutely tasteless.
Right. And I love that. How did somebody know that it was tasteless?
Well, there was a guy who tasted it, and he turned around and he went, "It tastes like," and then he was dead.
I always thought that, though.
So maybe it does taste like something, just nobody can get the words out before they die.
Get the next guy. Come in here. All right. And the slightly fruity odor, but how reliable is this?
Again, like who you walk down the streets of Manhattan, there's all sorts of smells, right? You got the hot dog guy, you got the nuts guy, you got the sewers, you got the homeless. So if I smell anything at all, I'm just, what am I really going to think? Oh, this is a chemical warfare agent, or am I going to be like the guy at the corner is selling fruit?
Right. It's not something that you're going to trigger you. It might be something that would help you identify. But again, how often do we use our senses, to identify or even classify something that could be a WMD, something that's designed to kill lots of people?
So where am I going to get the fruity odor from? Why are they even telling me that it's a fruity odor?
Well, it'd be what do you mean? Are you talking about the chemistry of it?
No, like so they tell us with all these different things. They'll say, and by the way, if you have if it smells like geraniums, it's well, I don't even remember what geraniums is. It's this chemical warfare agent, right? So why do they tell me that? If I'm not supposed to go in and I'm not supposed to be smelling it, why tell me what it smells like?
I don't know. It's a good question, Mike.
Well, think about it like this. I'm not going in there and smelling it, but maybe a victim that was in there can turn around and tell me what something smells like. So when somebody's given like a resource and they're interviewing somebody and they're sitting in the back of the ambulance and they say, "What happened?" And the person goes, "I don't know. All of a sudden it smelled like geraniums." You can go, "Ah,
Thank God he's a
I know what that smells like."
That's brilliant. Use them as guinea pigs.
Yes.
I love it. All right. All right. Well, all right. So, what is the most probable method, Mike,
Of what?
of them getting this stuff out there?
Geez, all right, well, how would I do it? I would try to figure out a way to mist it and get it on as many people as possible. Or I think I would try to put it on things that people touch a lot. So railings, for stairs. I don't know. What else do people touch a lot?
Yeah. No.
Doorknobs, handles.
Yeah. Exactly. We're just trying to use a little pressure to break up the liquid in the air, and hopefully it hangs out for absorption transdermally or inhalation. And that's what Mike's talking about when you put it on door handles and stuff like that. That you're going to transdermally, and then maybe you go shake a hand, and then you transfer it over.
Right. So we got sarin would be the next logical one we go to, which would be GB. Again, this is clear, colorless, odorless, tasteless. It's probably going to be aerosolized, like we said before, just like the Talbin, probably going to be put on something.
Right. And Soman, which is GD, is clear, colorless, tasteless, odorless when pure, and it goes to darker brown when it's aged.
Ooh, like a fine wine.
Not quite.
Again, probably going to be aerosolized.
Right. Cyclohexylsarin. I love that one.
That's a mouthful.
Again, clear, colorless, tasteless, odorless when pure, slightly soluble in water, and it's probably going to be aerosolized. Are you guys picking up a little bit of a pattern here?
A trend, if you would.
Mm-hmm.
All right, and then the ever popular V agent or VX, right? We've all seen the movies where somebody gets some VX on them and they stick the needle into their heart. All right, that's exactly how it's done in real life, so go ahead and do it. That was a joke. Please don't. I'm not responsible for you piercing your heart. It is clear. It is. You okay?
Oh my God.
No, really, if you do that, then I hope you do it before you have kids, so your genetics don't go on. Clear and amber colored. It's an oily appearance. It's generally miscible in water and dissolves in all solvents. So a little bit something different to think about if you're going to be doing some kind of a decon with this. All right. It is the least volatile of all the nerve agents. But again, in the grand scheme of things, they're all very, 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 very not volatile.
Right.
All right. And the preferred method, again, is going to be aerosolizing.
All right. Let's talk about signs and symptoms. And the way that we know it, at least in our neck of the woods, is something called sludgem. But I heard this other one's called dumbbells, and this might be from where you guys come from. And it's the way you remember all the signs and symptoms that have to do with a WMD exposure. And it's diarrhea, urination, meiosis, bronchospasms, emesis, lacrimation, salivation.
We should create a firefighter version of one where it's like shit yourself, piss yourself, cry like a baby, crap coming out of your mouth.
That's brilliant.
We should do that because
we're right next to the exit bags that we are branding.
Yes, because now you have the other one, right? You just did dumbbells, and everybody knows the sludgem, but nobody knows what any of these words are because we're all just stupid firemen. And no one has a freaking clue what lacrimation is until you tell them. And who's going to break out a dictionary for forgetting what L means? Oh, lacrimation. You know what? I don't know what lacrimation means, so I can't help you. All right? But sludgem is going to be salivation, lacrimation, urination, defecation, gastrointestinal upset, and emesis. All right? Or what's up?
And meiosis, or muscular twitching.
Right. The meiosis is the M, the muscular twitching. So if you can remember those biological words, good for you. But I think we're going to come up with something that's a little more fireman friendly and at like a 5th grade humor level.
All right. All right. So we went through the nerve agents, and now we're going into the blister or the vesicants. And we're just going to give a very basic overview of the blister agents. These are very toxic, extremely toxic agents. Many of them are carcinogens. So they'll produce, so They're going to hurt you. It's like an acute and a chronic. Oh, I'm blistering and I'm going to kill you later just to spite you.
Right, right, right. So if you live through this, you're going to die of this.
So that's awesome. And they produce nearly instantaneous blistering of affected skin. Very difficult to remove during decontamination. It's mainly because of like the structure of it's oily.
Right. And one of the primary ones, which is known as H, right, is your mustard or your Grey Poupon. All right. Colorless to pale, liquid to brown. Smells like garlics or onions. The garlic or onion guys, a lot of these blister agents, they have a heavy sulfur compounds in them. So you're going to get that kind of sulfury onion garlic smell. The delay is about 2 to 24 hours, and it's the only one to give a delayed symptoms.
Interesting. So this is mustard, straight mustard, Grey Poupon mustard, is the only one that's going to give you a delay, and everything else in this whole blistering thing is going to give you nearly instantaneous. And so when I mean instantaneous, I'm going to say you're going to start seeing some signs and symptoms within 5 minutes at the latest. 5 minutes. Another one is distilled mustard, which is HD, and that's colorless, pale yellow, brown, smells like garlic or onions.
I lost my spot. I don't have a mouse.
You're above it now. I just did distilled mustard.
All right, the next one would be then nitrogen mustard. All right, again, colorless to pale yellow to pale brown, smells like garlics or onions.
Lewisite, I love this one. L. It smells like germaniums. What do
there's the germaniums I was talking about.
Lewisite. I have no idea what it smells like.
Yeah, I couldn't even tell you what a geranium looked like to go to the florist to smell it to get an idea of what lewisite smells like.
We'll have to do that one day.
The effects of the blistered agents are going to look a lot like the riot control chemicals that they use, but there's going to be more severe pain.
Right. How about phosgene oxime or CX?
Phosgene.
It gives a pinwheel gray wheel looking rash like blister. It's kind of a weird thing. You got to see it. Look it up on do an image search in Google or something like that, and you'll find them.
So as opposed to like an off gray?
Yeah, right. We don't want those off grays.
So do I have to walk around with one of those things from Home Depot for paint?
Yes.
So I know exactly what pinwheel gray looks like?
Yes. You're getting crazy now. All right, continuing on, we have blood agents, and these interfere with the ability of the body to use oxygen on the cellular level. They're very volatile, non-persistent, and they can be liquids under pressure.
Hey, I got a question for you.
Go with it.
All right. What percentage of people can't smell this shit? Not their shit, this shit.
Okay, I was going to say, I'm going to go with 10%.
10% is not correct. It's a lot higher. About 40%. Yeah, about 40% of the population is unable to detect these odors. All right. They can show as seizures. However, they do not show with pinpoint pupils, which is common with like a nerve agent.
Okay, so they're going to have an effect that's common. That's going to give common symptoms of the nerve. However, they don't give you the pupils.
Right. So the biggest difference for this, right, is the nerve agents are going to block the nerve signals from shutting off. So they're always going to be on, which is where you kind of get your seizures from.
Right.
The blood agents are going to take the oxygen out of the system. So now the body is going to react in a depleted oxygen way, and seizing is one of them. But since the nerves are not on, you don't get the pinpoint pupils or the rest of the sludgeum or dumbbells or whatever acronym we're going to create soon.
Interesting. I like how you did that.
Does that make sense?
How about hydrogen cyanide, AC? We see this all the time in fire, right?
All the time.
Flammable. Main routes of absorption is through the mucosa, which is, lungs or the eyes or the mouth or the nose, anything like that.
And this is going to show up as respiratory difficulties, growing into severe respiratory arrest. You may also see kind of that reddening of the skin as the exposures increase.
Or even cyanogen chloride, which is CK. and you can treat this with the cyanogen kit, which includes the amyl nitrate, the sodium nitrate, sodium thiosulfate. These work to draw the hydrogen cyanide from the cell and detoxify the cyanide and remove it from the body. Now, do you want to go? Do you want to go into another little scenario here?
Sure.
All right, I'm gonna mark that. Or do you want to wait until we get to the end of this before we go into etiological, which is only like 4 or 5 things later? It would just wait.
Well, I got one for after Mace.
You got a little scenario?
Yeah, a little scenario.
All right, so then why don't we just do one after Mace?
Okay.
All right. So you're gonna go right into choking. Go ahead.
Okay. From there, we're going to get into some of the choking agents, which are going to be things like phosgene, chlorine. All right, chlorine, one of the big ones that can be used as both terrorism and, hazmat accident.
Yeah.
Working that. These work ultimately by producing pulmonary edema, which is going to be kind of like drowning in your own body fluid in your lungs.
Right. And even pesticides and agricultural, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Riot control agents also are fantastic irritants. They can be considered kind of choking agents as well. And a lot of the riot and control are going to be not only choking. Oh, I just fucked that whole thing up. Let me do that again. All right, and then we have our riot control agents and irritants. They are known as irritants, irritating agents, or sometimes harassment agents.
Yeah, I know a few guys like that.
Why are you looking at me like that?
You're a jerk.
These are things like pepper spray, tear gas, mace. Hey, remember the Occupy Wall Street stuff?
I do.
Yeah, it was nice when you would see the cops watering the liberals every morning.
Got to keep those Zacket Park plants well watered.
Hey, I got a question for you. All right, here we go.
Go with the urgent.
Little scenario for you.
All right.
You get a report of possible chemical warfare release in a school. We'll go back to the school.
Okay.
You arrive on scene. You have patients exhibiting some of the signs of sludgeum. So you've got the lacrimation, you've got the vomiting, you have some of those signs. You have 2 paths that you can go down: nerve agent, which is what people are thinking it is,
Okay.
or mace. What are you going to do to try to weed out which one it is?
All right. All right. I'm gonna assume a couple things. First off, do we have ventilation happening?
Well, there is no ventilation happening.
Okay, so then I'm going to get geared up. I'm going to be covering my mucosa because it seems like, if it's an aerosolized nerve agent, then we have concern about it transdermally. And if I have my gear on properly, even firefighting gear, then I will be able to stop that from happening. Would you agree?
Yes.
Okay, so what essentially I'm saying is, do we have to go level A? No, at this point.
Right. And bunker gear, if we're talking about, not to jump in on you, but just to clarify what Bob is saying, bunker gear, if you absolutely have to for life-saving purposes, is what you would want to do. Right.
So, another thing I'm going to probably try to do before I even go in there is interview people. More often than not, I'm going to say if it's a high school, it's more probable is that girls in high school, they carry a small canister of pepper spray in their pocketbooks for I don't know what you call it, attack, a possible sexual attack. So they put it in their locker and they put a heavy book on top, and then it deploys in the locker. And when they open it up, it lets out. So what happens is a lot of times you're going to get the OC or whatever it might be, the CN, the mace, is going to be there, and then it's going to be gone. and you might be left with a little bit of a propellant that might be registered on the 5-gas meter, or what we technically use is like the AP4C. Sometimes you can pick it up with the IMS. You can pick it up with the lower threshold type stuff. So I'm going to try to open up Windows and let it blow out, and then go in and do a little bit more of a closer interrogation of this area. Because if it's something that has persistence, okay, like my nerve agents, once they fall to the ground, I'll be able to get up close and test them. But if it's something like the mace or OC, it will basically go away with no residue very quickly.
Is there any, as far as signs and symptoms between mace and nerve agent?
Oh, I see. Utilizing that to further identify.
Yep.
Okay. Usually with mace, you're going to get that whole salivation, lacrimation, and the vomiting, because they're so upset that they've been exposed. When you have sludgeum, you really have all of them. I mean, and depending on the severity, you start getting a muscle twitching underneath the skin where it looks like there's a bag of worms under the skin. But you're going to get just about all the signs and symptoms in any type of nerve agent exposure. Right?
Right. And when you ventilate, what's going to happen with mace?
It basically, are you saying that it'll disperse? It'll go away?
No, if you were to expose somebody to a nerve agent and somebody to mace, and you were to pull both out of the atmosphere and now into fresh air, what are you going to get with mace that you're not going to get with?
It's almost a complete reversal. You'll with exposure to fresh air, the mace people will eventually come back down. So what you'll do is you just wash their face, trying to deluge. What do they call it? Copious amounts of water in their face, and signs and symptoms will gradually decrease. It's made for a rather short exposure time. It's like it maxes out at between 10 and 20 minutes. Whereas nerve agents may go for much, much longer.
Right. And if you've ever, so we talk about seizures, right? And we're going a little off topic here real quick, but I want everybody to kind of to do this. If you're listening to this show, please take the time to do this. Go to YouTube or however you get videos and search for the chemical warfare attacks in Syria, the videos that were released by the DoD, and just take a look. They had sarin attacks, and a lot of these places, they were attacked and people were brought into basements and shelters. I warn you, there are children in these videos, but watch them anyway, because when we talk about seizures, I always kind of had it in my mind like a grand mal seizure, right? Like an EMS grand mal seizure where the whole body is flipping out. And when you see these seizures, what a nerve agent seizure looks like, it is completely different. It is like the entire body is locked up and just kind of everything is twitching slightly. It's a very different seizure. And it is not something that I would have guessed was a seizure. So for the purposes of having that visual image in your mind, go to these attacks and you get to see all the different stages of what different people, both adults and unfortunately children, go through when they're in this.
All right. You want to take us into etiologicals?
Sure. Etiologicals are agents that are defined as substances that are capable of causing a disease.
Okay, so some examples is like hepatitis or HIV, right? Or even, well, I'm going to say that again.
Okay.
And some examples of that might be like hepatitis virus or HIV.
Why? What do you mean HIV? Like, what does HIV cause?
It causes I'm not following you.
So we'll mark it. So HIV causes AIDS. AIDS is what you die of. HIV is the virus that causes
Leads
the
up
illness.
to it.
Right. That's all.
All right, what do you want me to do? You want me to do it again?
If you want to, it would be a good example, I think, because
Okay.
it is an agent that are defined as substances that are capable of causing a disease.
Okay, so let me
Okay.
All right, an example would be like hepatitis viruses or even HIV, which would lead you to AIDS, right? So,
Right. So it's the virus that's causing the AIDS, and the AIDS is what you eventually die of.
all right, let's talk about combination devices, something like an RDD or a radiological dispersal device. This is accomplished by like packing a nuclear, either spent or active, uh, fissile material. It doesn't even have to be fissile material. It could be any type of
Right.
radioactive material around a conventional explosive device.
Right. The detonation would spread the radioactive material all over an area. All right. The immediate problem could be radiation burns and acute poisoning. Long term problems would be cancer and contaminated groundwater. And in reality, another huge potential for this is going to be scaring the shit out of the population.
All about the psych.
Right. All about the psych. I can take benign radioactive material. Uh, I won't say what it is or where I would get it from, but I could get a decent amount of it, pack it into an explosive, explode it, and people aren't going to care that it's nothing. They're just going to hear radiation just got spread through Manhattan.
Right. It's a big deal.
Big deal.
All right,
Big deal.
let's go into TRACEM. TRACEM, another one of those mnemonics, and that is going to stand for the T is thermal, radiological, asphyxiation, chemical, etiological, and mechanical. And these are kind of like that all hazards, the hazards of terrorism and WMDs.
Yeah, this is one of those things created and is in a lot of the standards that we talk about. The government loves shit like this. And it's basically how hazardous materials can reach out and hurt you. All right. So the first one being T, being thermal. These are hot and cold substances, anything that would have thermal heat damage. All right. This doesn't only apply to fire, but also the heat generated by a detonation or a deflagration, also the heat caused by chemical reactions.
How about radiological dangers? And they can include alpha, beta particles, gamma radiation, and also the radiological substances also have chemical hazards.
Right. Asphyxiation would include both simple and complex. Simple being the lack of oxygen in the atmosphere, complex or chemical being the inability for the body to use the oxygen that's coming in.
And chemical dangers would include primarily toxic or corrosive materials.
The E for etiological, we just talked about before. These are all the bacteria, the rickets, the viruses, the toxins, all the things that come from the biological thing. How to disperse them, how to get them, contact with blood, all the different methods and means of getting bad biological stuff out there.
Yeah. And mechanical dangers include any type of mechanical or physical item or situation that causes some trauma. So, like blast pressures and shock waves and fragmentation can cause mechanical harm. Bombs, the weapons most frequently used by terrorism, are basically sources of mechanical hazard.
Right. And then, so from there, we start to talk about the secondary devices, which we mentioned a little bit earlier. All right. And the goal of the secondary device is to create as much damage and to overwhelm all the resources.
Right. We warn of the secondary devices. We talked about this in the beginning of the last episode, and we it's something to be checked on. Secondary devices are often released at terrorist attacks. Let's just face it, they are designed to injure or kill the first responders. Safety devices increase the death and destruction. They are, and even the psychological warfare where, oh my God, even the responders aren't safe. No, they're not. In Atlanta in 1997, a secondary device exploded while firefighters attended to victims at the bombing.
Right. You can reduce your chances of being injured through a couple different easy ways. One, you want to stage your apparatus and personnel well away from the initial blast. Two, you want to stay clear of large shrubs, dumpsters, mailboxes, other things that could conceal a secondary device. And you want to search all the victims before you transport them.
Right. What if we had a victim that had something planted?
I would leave them where they were.
Right. And they're now part of the scenario. So another way to reduce your risk of injuries by a secondary device is being very careful with your communications equipment. Radio signals can trigger an explosion. So avoid any communications in the area of the suspected device. And this includes handheld radios, cell phones, MDTs, or mobile data terminals, whatever you have.
Right. And working groups of two. No team should have less than 2 members. All right. That way we eliminate 2 funerals in the same day is generally the idea that we're thinking. All right. And teams working in the hot zone should have members backing them up in the warm zone, and a rescue intervention team, a fast team, however you want to say, for the group of people that are on the sidelines waiting to come in case the first responder has problems, is very, very important.
And beware of the booby trap.
Ooh, you're a boob. What about PPE selection?
Well, where my primary thing is going to be time, distance, shielding. All right. So I want to minimize my time, maximize my distance, and use the best shielding, aka my gear, I guess it would be. And that doesn't just have to be what's on my personal ensemble. It could be also maybe some other things I could throw in front of me, like I don't know, using a rig or building.
Yeah, anything that gives it to you. And I know a lot of people are going to sit and they're going to go, "Oh, your time distance shielding doesn't really fall in the PPE heading," but I kind of think it does, and I kind of think it's important. You know, you put on your PPE to limit your exposure. You put on your PPE to keep you safe, and part of that PPE is knowing what you can and can't do in it. And I think time, distance, and shielding goes right along into the PPE selection.
Right. We want to maximize and use the appropriate shielding. But we got to be also careful of that whole Superman complex where, and it happens a lot in the fire department on the fire side where we go into a fire and you hear those older guys who thankfully gone out to pasture now. Oh, I don't wear hoods because I like to feel the heat. At this point in the game, you can't compete anymore. So we have to use our gear, and our gear is getting better and better, including our hazmat stuff. So being able to say, well, I'm in a level A, I'm just going to go right in and take care of this. Pump the brakes a little bit. Feel, if you're not feeling comfortable, there's probably a reason. Especially, and if your partner is saying, I don't know about this, listen, there's
Right.
no to run in there.
So like when we say PPE selection, there's things that you need to think about. As an operations level, you may not have too many choices. All right, it may be bunker gear, or a lot of our operations guys. Well, I wouldn't even say that. I think pretty much just bunker gear. When you get into the technician level, you start to have a lot more choices, and you need to start thinking, all right, what is my concern for flammability? What is my concern for acids, bases? When it comes to explosion, I don't know. I think pretty much bunker gear is the way to go. When it comes to radiation, bunker gear is pretty much the way to go. Um, I don't know. What else would you think of for PPE selection? It's very chemical dependent, and I guess we'd have to go through all the chemicals and be like, all right, for chlorine, I'd use a level A. For hydrogen cyanide, I would.
It'd be very hard to do in a show like this.
Yeah.
But
So understand what your PPE selection is, what your potentials are, and have a good working knowledge of the chemistry so you can pick the right PPE.
Mike, let's wrap this whole thing up with some fun facts. Agents are 20 times more lethal inside than outside of your body because they can't disperse as readily.
That sounds.
Did I say that? I meant
what's that?
a building. I meant a building, not body.
Okay, you want to do it again?
Yeah, I'm going to say it again. Let's wrap this thing up with a little bit of fun facts that we found out there, that agents are 20 times more lethal inside than outside of a building because they cannot disperse as readily.
Right. So let's think about this for a second. Anytime we have something inside in an enclosed area, almost universally, the warning limits are halved. All right. So, for an example, what we mean by that is we go into a flammable environment, and at the 10% of the LEL, we have a warning level, whereas outside we have our warning level is 20. So it's cut in half. All right. This is because we cannot guarantee that it will be dispersed by air currents in the environment, and the wind is going to take it away.
Another thing that I found while doing a little research for this class, or this outline, whatever you want to call it, is that I didn't think that that nerve agents and things had a place in the ERG, and I was told wrong. Nerve agents UN 3278 are in Guide 151. Blood agents are UN 1051, and they're in Guide 117. Vesicants UN number 2810, Guide number 153, and you can look all of these things up. They all have guides. Blisters in Guide 123, irritants in 159. Very cool stuff. I had no idea that was an ERG.
No,
No, I really did.
no.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, if you think about it, it's definitely good that they put it in there because a lot of times somebody's going to pull up and not have a clue what to do. So it's a great guide. What about metering at these things? All right. At terrorist incidents, we try to equate the two. A terrorist incident is just like a hazmat incident. So would we bring our meters to a hazmat incident? Absolutely. So I'm going to bring my meters on a terrorist incident as well.
Yeah, and at this time, there are no metering or monitoring equipment for biologicals, although I will say during my investigations, Draeger has developed a technology using a series of tubes, and it's available only to emergency responders, and I don't know much more about it than that because it was kind of secretive.
Hmm. For nerve agents, there are definitely monitors out there. There's a whole plethora of different types of things. However, you have nothing to go on but the victim's signs and symptoms and collecting the samples from their clothing. Then that's what it is. You must. Uh, oh, okay. This is going to be something that's going to get very big very, very quickly. So make sure you contact the state and federal agencies for help. They're going to be able to have a whole slew of stuff. You get like a nerve agent attack. For the most part, this is going to be something that is way beyond the capabilities of a small or even a medium sized department. They can give a lot of help over the phone. So reach out.
Right, and even sampling, it's generally not the responsibility of the fire department or EMS. It generally is performed by like specially trained federal or state personnel. All right.
Well, I think that pretty much wraps up this episode of the Hazmat Guys. Thank you for taking a little bit of your day to listen to us, and hopefully, we made your job just a little bit easier.
You can find us on Facebook and Twitter at the Hazmat Guys, and please take a moment to go to iTunes and put a review of our podcast, or you can call our new common hotline at 843-628-1484. That's 843-6 the Matt.
So it turns out that we are not as ugly as we thought we were, and we've decided to produce a live, unedited version of this show every week. It's going to go on YouTube. You can also find us on Google Plus and follow us to be notified when the show starts, if that's what you want.
And we always look forward to your feedback about interesting incidents or information that you were a part of. So please send us a note at feedback@thehazmatguys.com.
I would like to thank Bob Salverson and Michael Monaco for editing the show this week.
Very nice guys.
And remember, don't just get on the job, get into the job.
Nice. Okay. So I'm going to mark that. And now I already have the intros and outros for the Nuggets. So I'm just going to do one. I got one for Mass Decon. Right. Where is it? Okay, I got it. All right. So for this, all right, you know what? I'm going to mark it one more time because that way I know where it starts.
Okay.
For this nugget, I'm going to go into something that's called that's a drill for mass decon, and it's something that you might need a couple of different pieces of apparatus to do. But if you grab two engines and you put them almost nose to nose, like they're angling towards each other with maybe 10 feet in between the two noses, we put fog appliances on the officer's side of the rigs. That doesn't make sense. Nose to nose, we wouldn't be able to do that. Let me start it again. In this nugget, we are going to talk about mass decon and the ways that you can kind of do some drilling to set this all up. First thing I would say is just to take two engines where the officers' sides are pointing at each other and they're parallel to each other. And you want to set up two fog appliances on that. The reason why I want the pump panels on the outside is that people are not coming by the operators. We can set up this type of decon where we can use dry soap flakes and we could put it on people. And this is actually a pretty good way of us checking how effective our mass decon is, because black light will show on dry laundry soap. So once they go through it, and you could do all different types of variations with this, where you could do the dry broom, you could do a little bit of water, you could do a water with a scrub, you could do with a tower ladder shooting down as well. You can also use like shaving cream to use to simulate contamination, and you can be surprised about how much you miss during decon, either scrubbing or just this mass dilution. Thanks. All right. What are you going to do?
All right. Today's hazmat nugget is going to be all about sampling and sampling inside the hot zone. One of the things that I like to do is to go in initially with a couple of vials and my sampling kit. I like to take whatever the product is I'm going to be sampling, put it into my vial, and then go to a non-contaminated area of the hot zone. In this hot zone, we set up a nice table, we set up all of our meters, all of our colorimetrics, and we stand up and we run all of our samples. Couple of different things with this. One, it allows me to not be on the floor and not be near the contaminated area. I'm still within the hot zone, so I have not brought anything out of the hot zone, and I can work with all of my meters all at once at standing height and have everything organized nice and neat. While we're talking about sampling, I also want you to consider this. Any kind of colorimetric sampling that you're going to be doing, make sure you have a clean version of that sample. So if you're doing pH paper or you're doing chemical classifier strips, have a version of those strips that's not going to be sampled. This will allow you to compare your results with what it looked like initially. There are a lot of different colors out there and a lot of different color changes. A lot of times I cannot remember what it looked like beforehand to know if there was a color change. So by having a clean version of that, you have something to compare to directly.
All right. All right. So what do we got left?
With what?
That's it, right? I mean, we're at an hour and 23 minutes of recording. We've done you got to do one more intro.
Yes.
Episode 35. So just do it again, episode 35 at the end of this. I'll remember that's there.
You want me to do 36 too? If we're doing half-hour shows?
Well, then we're going to have to do one more nugget.
Okay.
I think we can do this we could do a half-hour show. I mean, I can make it right now into a 45-minute show, 2 45s.
Okay.
And that's unedited. I'm guessing at 45s. That's an hour and 30.
Yeah, that's true.
It's probably like 36 minutes each.
Yep. Okay. Welcome back, everybody, to episode 35. We are the premier podcast dealing with hazardous material response for the first responder. We are here to give you the knowledge and the insights to do our job safely and effectively. I'm Michael Monaco. Glad to be continuing this episode with my co-host, Bob Salverson.
Yes, indeed. Now we're just going to get right back into it. So let's not dilly-dally. Let's finish up.
All right.
There you go. So I can just mesh that together because everything's going to be the same level. It's going to be so easy to do. All right. I think that's it, man. So, all right. So we did 2 intros, 1 outro. I'm just going to duplicate. We have the insides, and I'm going to split that. Put in the 2 nuggets. I think that's it. I think we got all the pieces.
Okay.
And I'm going to do it when I'm in Baltimore.
Okay.
Because I might as well sit there and fucking do it while I'm there.
All right. 10-4. Just do me a favor. Once you get the unclipped audio, send it to me. I just want to play around with the video, see what I can do.
Listen, if I am doing nothing tonight, I might just edit it tonight.
Okay.
Because it's easier for me to have 2 screens and do it quicker. But if I'm on the road. But that's about it.
All right. Sounds good.
All right, man.
All right. Did we need to chat at all about Baltimore or?
Oh, yeah. We can. All right. Let's stop the recording. And I'm going to